Hi guys, it's Mr. Reddy here with another outdoor learning, remote learning lesson, and today we are going to be learning about something called food chains. But before we get to food chains, what I need you to do is to go and find your habitat box that you made last week, because we are going to be using it in today's lesson. Now in today's lesson, guys, we are going to be doing a little bit of role play, and to do that I have made simple puppets that I am going to be using in my desert habitat that I made last week. I am going to be using a gecko, I thought I could use a grasshopper, a snake and a falcon, and they're really easy to make, guys. All I have done is just added a little picture to the straw, ready for me to practice and role play out in my desert habitat. Now guys, here we have my habitat. Here's the habitat that I made. And before I go any further, I've got a quick question for you. Out of all the things in my habitat, there is only one thing which is living. What would that living thing be? Now, if you said the plants, you would be absolutely correct. They are alive. They need water, they need food, they need sunlight to survive. Okay? They're the only living things here. The rocks aren't alive, the water isn't alive, the sand isn't alive, and my cave, of course, it isn't alive. Now, plants actually play a very, very important part, if not the most important part of food chains, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Plants are producers. Now, a producer is something that produces or makes its own food. And in order for the plants to make their food, they need water, they need carbon dioxide, which is in the air, and they need sunlight. And they use those three things to make their food and give themselves energy. Plants don't go around hunting for food like other animals, like camels or caterpillars or lions. No, they are in one place and they are using water, carbon dioxide and sunlight to make their own food. Producer is certainly one of the most important words that we are going to be using today. So try your very best to remember it. Producer means that they are producing, that they are making their own food. And now guys, it is time for me to begin my little role play. I'm just going to take this information out by here, and I am going to introduce my first animal, my grasshopper. Now, where do you think my grasshopper would like to live? Would it live up on the mountains? Would it live in the grass? Would it live in the sand? Or can you think of somewhere else where my grasshopper would love to live? Now, if you said in the plants, amongst the leaves, the trees, the bushes, you would be absolutely correct. And that is because the grasshoppers love to eat plants. They are what we call herbivores. So the grasshopper would spend its day in and around this part of our habitat, eating away, getting lots of energy. The grass, as well as giving it food, would also be giving it shelter. Okay, they would find shelter, protection in the thick bushes as well, from the things that might want to eat it. That's a good question, actually. What do you think would eat a grasshopper? Now, I'm going to introduce my next part of my food chain. Here, I have a gecko. You might have seen a gecko in and around Dubai. We've even got a couple down in outdoor learning. Now, the geckos, they are cold-blooded animals that love to live in these rocky parts of their habitats, places where they can stay out of the sun when it gets very hot, and it also is safe for them. And when they go out to hunt, they would then search for their food, get some water if they can, and they love to eat insects, especially our grasshoppers. So our grasshopper would be spending its day happily eating the grass until the gecko would come and eat our grasshopper. The grasshopper now has its food, now has its energy that it needs to survive. However, the gecko has got to be on alert, because there could be something else. When he comes back to his home, his shelter, there could be something waiting for him. And that could be the next part of our food chain, the snake. Now the snake also likes to live in and amongst the rocks, so it's safe from the sun. And when the gecko comes back, the snake has to eat just as much as the gecko does, and it would gobble up our gecko. And now the gecko has left our food chain and is now part of the snake's food chain cycle. The energy from the gecko is now inside of our snake, and the snake could be slithering around thinking it's very happy, it's very full. However, the snake should be careful. If it's not in amongst the rocks, it could become prey itself. Something could swoop down and eat it. And that thing could be the falcon, who could be watching our gecko, who could be watching our snake and the grasshopper from high up on the mountain. And when it sees the right opportunity, it would then swoop down, take the snake, carry it away for it to eat up in its nest. Now here, boys and girls, are all the things that I used in my role play activity just then. And all of these, from the leaf to the falcon, are parts of a food chain. And all a food chain shows, it shows what is eating what. My food chain started with the producer. The leaf didn't go and find its food, no. It made its food using the water, the carbon dioxide, and the sunshine. The grasshopper then spent its morning out amongst the leaves, eating away happily, getting its food, getting the energy it needed. However, the gecko came from its home and found the grasshopper and ate the grasshopper. The snake then found the grasshopper and gobbled that up. And finally, our falcon swooped down and ate the snake. Your first job for today, boys and girls, is to, first of all, make these little puppets. They could just be a little drawing, and you can add them to some straws and practice being the grasshopper, or pretending to be the gecko eating the grasshopper, or the falcon swooping down. Now obviously your animals or your insects are all going to be things which are perfect for the habitats that you made. These wouldn't be any good in an ocean habitat or a polar habitat because they wouldn't survive there. Think about what animals are perfect for your habitat, and then make your puppets and have a go at practice and acting out and becoming experts on your food chain. Okay guys, so now you've had a chance to become experts at your food chain by doing a little bit of role play in your habitats from last week. Now I've moved over here so I can teach you all a little bit more about food chains and how they work exactly. Okay, so pay attention and let's learn. Now the first part of any food chain, boys and girls, is the producer. And a producer is a plant that makes its own energy, its own food, using water, carbon dioxide and sunshine. Without a producer, without any plants, then there would be no food chain, because there would be nothing for the grasshopper to eat, there would be then nothing for the gecko to eat, nothing for the snake to eat, and nothing for the falcon to eat. So the producer is the very first part on our food chain and the most important part of our food chain. Now, as we learned, the grasshopper loves eating leaves. Its food, its energy comes from the leaf. Now, because it eats something, we don't call it a producer. We call it a consumer. it consumes, it eats its food to get its energy. Now, to show that it's the grasshopper eating the leaf and not the leaf eating the grasshopper, we need to put an arrow into our food chain. And the arrow must go this way, because the arrow shows the direction in which the energy is traveling. The energy is going from the leaf to the grasshopper when the grasshopper eats it. Now, can you remember what was the next part of our food chain? The next part of our food chain was the gecko. The gecko is also a consumer. It eats something. If it eats something, it is a consumer. A plant is not a consumer because it doesn't eat anything. It produces, it makes its own food. Now, which way should my arrow go? Should my arrow go this way or should my arrow go that way? Pause the video, have a little think. Now, of course, guys, my arrow needs to show the direction in which the energy is traveling. And when the gecko eats the grasshopper, the energy from the grasshopper is going into the gecko. So our arrow needs to point this way. Now, next up, we have the snake. Now, is the snake a producer or is it a consumer? Well, of course, it has to be a consumer because it eats the gecko. And to show that it eats the gecko, we need to remember that the arrow is going this way, not the other way. The final part of our food chain is the falcon. Now, the falcon is a consumer as well, okay? And our arrow, of course, needs to be pointing this way to show that the energy from the snake is going into the falcon. And here is a food chain. Important things to remember: producers are the plants, they make their food. Everything else is a consumer because they have to eat something. The grasshopper eats the leaf, the gecko eats the grasshopper, the snake eats the gecko, the falcon eats the snake. It's also very, very, very important that we remember to put the arrows the right way. If we put them this way, our food chain would be wrong, because it would then mean that the leaf is eating the grasshopper, that the grasshopper is eating the gecko, that the gecko is eating the snake, and the snake is eating the falcon. And we know that that is completely wrong. So our arrows must be pointing the correct way. Now, for your second activity for today, boys and girls, what I would like you to do is have a go at making your own food chain. Okay, I want to see if you can make your food chain. You could use your puppets like what I use, or if you want to draw it on a piece of paper, you can do. But what's important is that you are putting your food chain in the correct order, starting with the producer and finishing with the very end of the food chain, which was my falcon. And also making sure that you add your arrows and that they are pointing in the correct way. As well as that, guys, if you could show me what a consumer is, I would be so, so happy. And that is everything for today's lesson, boys and girls. I hope you have fun doing some role play. I hope you have fun making your food chains. If you want to make new food chains for new habitats using new puppets, that would be absolutely amazing as well, if that's what you would like to do. Boys and girls, have great fun. Once you finish your work, send us a picture of your food chains, or if you want to do a little video showing us how your food chains work, that would also be amazing. Have a great time, guys. I look forward to seeing your work soon.